Hi, my name is Mark. So sorry if my voice sounds a little bit weird. It's allergy season and I'm kind of sick, but let's be honest, the video isn't going to record itself, so I hope you can deal with it. So one thing I think we can all agree on is that dissonance isn't good, right? We don't want to play the ugly sounding notes, we want to play the good notes, the pretty sounding notes, right? Even if you don't know anything about theory or something like it, you know that if you're playing over an E and you play an E flat, it probably doesn't sound good. Or does it? Can it sound good? That's what this video is about. Because I can guarantee you, many of the songs that you think sound good and that have pretty chords and whatever, it's not the right notes that make that song sound good and interesting. It's the wrong notes. I'll show you what I mean. But before I get to it, I just want to say, please subscribe to my channel. You've probably noticed that YouTube's been acting a little bit weird lately. Even if you subscribe to the channel, this channel's videos may really not show up in your subscription box. And even if you ring the little notification bell thingy below, you'll still really may not be notified of that channel's content. So if you want to stay tuned to my content or the content of my favorite creators, you really should subscribe and turn on all the notifications. And since that may or may not work, I highly suggest you follow me on social media. Not only do I post some exclusive stuff there like improvised solos and jamming over backing tracks, and generally whatever I'm up to at the moment, but I always post there about my videos. Links for the usual suspects will be below, like Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, but in general at Guitar. Oh, and since you're down there, please leave a like and perhaps share this video on social media. I'd highly appreciate it. And yeah, I guess now we can get straight into it. Okay, so as I was mentioning before, many of the songs that you think sound good, and many of the fancy chords that you think sound pretty, mostly have some ugly notes added in here and there. For instance, everybody loves these chords, and this chord. Well, if you take a look at this one, for instance. Oh, and by the way, if you're not really sure of how to name chords and which intervals relate to what and wherever, I have a couple of videos you may want to check out right here. This is an F major 7 sharp 11. But if you break it down, it's basically an F major chord. But you're adding the notes B and E. And some of you will be thinking, wait, but if I'm playing an F chord, and I'm playing an E, it will probably sound bad. And the same thing with that B note that we added. We have a C in our F major chord. If you only played a B and a C together, you probably wouldn't win an Emmy or something like it because of it. It's not like those sounds are unusable, but it's not something that you'd like to be playing all the time, right? But those little dissonants, and in this case because they're a little bit spread out, are what make these sorts of chords really pretty sounding. If you switched up the order of those notes, for instance, instead of playing a C in this octave, then a B an octave up, if you played a B in this octave and a C an octave up, and the same thing for the E and F, instead of doing like this, you do it like this, the chord probably wouldn't be sounding as nice. Again, it's not an unusable sound, but this sound isn't as pretty as this sound. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to structure these sorts of notes, but even if you're thinking to yourself, oh yeah, that's cool and all, but those who use those sorts of chords are those Steve Vai, John Petrucci prog guys. I'm a blues rock guy, I'm not going to use these sorts of chords. They didn't used to do this in the 60s and 70s, so I don't need it. Well, I can tell you that that's not exactly right. For instance, a really good example is and their other song. You start out with a pretty A major at 9, but then look at that F sharp minor at 9. Here you have this. And in that Message in a Bottle song, you have again that F sharp minor at 9 chord, and there's tons of other bands that use these sorts of chords, both new bands with some more recent genres like math rock and something like it, but the rock and pop classics also use this sort of stuff. Probably the most common example would be a dominant 7th chord. Which, if you don't know what a dominant 7th chord is when you take a major chord, but you add the minor 7th or the dominant 7th, which is just a tone below the root. So in this case, if you're in E, a tone below E would be D, so you can add the D in here and play. Or in the more common position. And even if the chord doesn't seem that bad, it's just an E major chord with an extra note. If you look at the notes in that chord, E, B, D, and G sharp, the D and the G sharp form a tritone. And when we play these sorts of chords and we add these extra, sometimes dissonant notes, we add them because we want to add an extra color to the chord. If I just told you, okay, paint me something blue, you wouldn't really know what shade of blue I wanted you to use. And it's the same thing with chords. If you play an E major chord, you have a shade like, I don't know, like green. And if you play like, I don't know, an E major 7 chord, it's like saying, okay, I want a green, but I want a dark green, for instance. Or if you say, okay, I want an E major sharp 9 add 13 chord, that's a very specific shade of green that, depending on the context, you may need to use. And again, there are no rules for this. This chord is an F major 7 sharp 11, and this chord is also an F major 7 sharp 11. The notes are just slightly rearranged. And usually the prettiest sounding way to add these sorts of notes will be to first gather the notes of the chord. In this case, an F major chord, the notes of an F major chord are the notes F, A, and C. So I first want to gather those notes. And then we can add the extensions. In this case, since we have an F major 7 sharp 11, the extensions are the major 7th and the sharp 11th. The major 7th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the sharp 11th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Here's the 11th. And if we sharpen it, we have a B. So we add it right there. First the notes of the chord, and then the extensions. But again, we didn't need to do it like this. Use your ears to find the way that you most like it. It's really your choice for what you think is appropriate for the song. For fuck's sake. In theory, I should probably re-record the video till now, but ain't nobody got time for that. Even though many times we spread out these dissonance intervals, again, this G sharp and A, we spread it out, and we usually have the sharpest one on the bass. For instance, in this case, the A is sharper than G sharp. Even though this also isn't exactly not dissonant, it's not as dissonant as having, but it's ultimately your choice. If you think it sounds good in your own song, you can do it in your own song. For instance, I prepared you a little example with just some easy chords like A major, D major, B minor, and C sharp major. And I'm sort of thinking in the key of A major, perhaps F sharp harmonic minor because of that C sharp major chord. But the idea is that, again, in this case we have A major. In this case we're actually in A major. So instead of just playing a boring A major chord, you could, for instance, do an A major 7. For this position, I really like the sound of this position. Even though we don't really have a third in this position, we're missing that C sharp. It's cool because we have this dissonance right here with that G sharp and that A. And I purposely played those together because, again, if you just played, it probably wouldn't sound that good. But when I add that A on the bass, when I start adding all of the other notes, next we had a D major chord, and I decided to go to this position because we have more strings, we can add a little bit more nuance to it. And I went for this position right here. And I went for this position right here. Which basically is a D major chord. You have the D right here, you have the 5th, the A, and the F sharp in here. And then I just barred the 9th fret, adding the 6th, in this case we'd probably call it the 13th. I added the sharp 11th, and the major 7th. So in this case it would be a D major 7, sharp 11 at 13. Crazy sounding names. Here's that position again. The next chord we had was the B minor. And in this case I went for this weird position, which doesn't really look like a B minor, it looks more like an F sharp minor chord, right? Or an F sharp sus chord. But since I have an F sharp, that open D and that open B, all those notes make up a B minor chord. After you know that, you just look at all of the other notes and add them as extensions. So we have right here the C sharp, which is the 9th. The other note we had was that G sharp, which is the 6th of B. So it's basically a B minor at 9/13. And again, you can play that chord in tons of other positions. Again, if you look at this chord also a B minor at 9/13. We're kind of missing the 5th because I don't have enough fingers, but you get the point, right? And the last chord being that C sharp major, again I went for this position. And I thought of altering it by adding the minor 6th. And I thought, okay, a really good example is to use the minor 9th, because again, the minor 9th is one of those intervals that really doesn't get used a lot. The major 7th we kinda use, but when we invert those positions, we rarely use this sort of sound. So I thought, okay, in this case, since it's sort of a fridge and harmonic minor vibe, I thought it would really bring that sound out. And again, it's a really spicy interval. But in the context of a song, it might work. I guess it would probably be more accurate to call it a D minor over a C sharp major chord. But if you want, you can call it a C sharp major flat 9th, flat 13th, however you want to call it. We went from this to something like this. And again, it's kind of wrongly played and there were some misplays here and there, because this is mostly an extreme example of the chord positions you can get. And I haven't really practiced this a lot. But pretty much what it basically comes down to is, don't be afraid of using those stinky notes. Those stinky notes have a use. You shouldn't really be afraid of using those half steps, even if they sound dissonant at first. Again, you don't want to be playing your whole song, but if you add a sneaky chord like, it may sound interesting. And hey, if you actually do anything with these sorts of chords and concepts, please film yourself playing this on Instagram and tag me on it. Not only will I see it, but I'll repost it and tag you on it. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope this video was helpful to you in any way possible, and if it was, please leave me a comment below. Do you have anything to add to this discussion? Did you agree? Did you not agree? Was there something I missed? Something I should have said? Also, if you have any suggestions for videos, I have this dedicated series called Yate, You Ask I Teach. I know, pretty boring, generic, and self-explanatory title, but it's a series where, as the name implies, I pretty much teach anything you guys in the comment section below. Well, guitar and or music related, of course. The 4th episode is coming real soon, so stay tuned for that, and if you want to leave a suggestion of your own and get a little shout out, please leave it in the comment section below with the hashtag Yate. And since you're here, why not check some of my other videos out? I do some other videos like this one, talking about a specific music theory concept or something related to it, and explain it so many of you guys can use it. And I also do some other videos where I look at a specific lick from a guitar player that I either think is interesting or a little bit different from what they usually play, and I transcribe it so that you guys can check it out. And at this point, there's a little bit of a back catalog that you can check out. But yeah, I guess that's it. Again, thank you so very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications. Please follow me on social media to stay tuned for new videos and all of that extra stuff. If you guys could leave a comment for my 8 series, it would be really cool. And yeah, cheers!